Hello friends, we are here to discuss about The Bet short story by Anton Chekhov. The short story is one of Anton Chekhov's most thought-provoking works. It explains and examines the conflict between materialism and spirituality through a 15-year bet between a banker and a lawyer. The context is set in 19th century Russia, where intellectual discussions and moral questions about human life were prominent. About the author, Anton Chekhov was one of Russia's greatest literary figures, renowned for portraying ordinary human struggles with emotional subtlety. He practiced medicine throughout his life, which gave him a deep understanding of suffering and the human psyche. In The Bet, he applies this insight to explore moral and existential questions about the value of human life, contrasting intellectual pursuits with material greed. The setting and background. The story begins during a lively debate at a social gathering, typical of the intellectual saloons of the time. The confinement in the banker's lodge becomes both a literal and symbolic setting, representing isolation, introspection, and the human struggle for meaning. The contrast between the luxury of the banker's world and the simplicity of the lawyer's cell underlines the spiritual transformation at the heart of the story. The main characters. The banker represents greed, ego, and the corrupting power of wealth. His decision to make the bet arises from arrogance and disbelief in spiritual endurance. The lawyer, on the other hand, begins as ambitious and naive but evolves into a man of wisdom and self denial. Chekhov here uses these two characters as symbols of the eternal conflict between material wealth and intellectual enlightenment. Going on to the plot overview, the story structure follows a moral arc from pride to realization. Initially, both characters act from vanity, the banker from arrogance and the lawyer from ambition. Through isolation, the lawyer's journey transforms him from worldly to spiritual understanding. Chekhov's climax, when the banker finds the lawyer's renunciation letter, reveals the ultimate irony. The true winner is the one who rejects wealth. So, going on to the detailed overview, Chekhov details the gradual intellectual and spiritual growth of the lawyer, from seeking entertainment to mastering languages and delving into theology. The lawyer's reading reflects his evolving search for meaning. By the 15th year, he has learned to despise material life and embrace higher truths. This transformation contrasts sharply with the banker's moral decline, making the lawyer's journey one of enlightenment and self discovery. The climax and resolution. The climax is a moment of moral revelation. The banker's intent to murder the lawyer exposes his complete moral bankruptcy. However, upon discovering the letter, he realizes his spiritual defeat. The lawyer's renunciation of wealth becomes an act of liberation, proving his moral superiority. Chekhov ends not with tragedy, but with quiet irony. Both men are alive, but only one is truly free. The themes of the short story. Chekhov contrasts two philosophies, the banker's materialism and the lawyer's idealism. Isolation serves as a metaphor for self discovery. The story critiques greed, suggesting that knowledge and spiritual awareness provide deeper satisfaction than wealth. Ultimately, the bet questions what makes life meaningful and whether human progress is defined by possessions or by understanding. The symbols and motifs in the short story. So, every symbol in the short story contributes to its moral depth. The symbols and motifs in this novel are the human arrogance, enlightenment, and transformation, physical prison, spiritual freedom, and at last the moral awakening. The bet itself is an experiment in human endurance and pride. The cell, through confining, becomes a sanctuary of learning. Books act as instruments of intellectual rebirth, while the final letter symbolizes ultimate liberation from worldly attachments. Through these motives, Chekhov communicates that true wisdom arises from renunciation, not from accumulation. Style and literary devices employed in the short story. So here Chekhov's realism is understated yet powerful. He avoids moral preaching and instead uses irony to reveal his character's transformation. The story's simplicity conceals complex psychological shifts. Foreshadowing builds tension. Hints of greed and vanity predict the banker's downfall. Chekhov's concise, objective style invites reader to interpret the moral lesson themselves, reinforcing his belief in human introspection. The moral and message. Here, the moral of the bet is profound yet very simple. Spiritual and intellectual fulfillment outweigh material gain. Chekhov also implies that society's obsession with wealth blinds people to deeper truths. The lawyer's renunciation is not defeat, it is enlightenment. The banker, though rich, is spiritually bankrupt. The story ultimately teaches that life's worth lies in consciousness and not in comfort. The quotable lines: to live anyhow is better than not at all. I despise your freedom and wealth. You have lost your reason and taken the wrong path. These lines capture the story's core conflict between existence and essence. They show the lawyer's transition from valuing survival to rejecting the superficial pleasures of life. The contrast between initial optimism and final renunciation, which illustrates the philosophical growth that Chekhov celebrates. Now, moving on to the critical interpretation, Chekhov observes rather than judges. The story also mirrors human greed and enlightenment. The lawyer's renunciation lies in the moral victory. So Chekhov leaves interpretation open to the reader, making the bet a mirror of personal reflection. Some critics view the story as a critique of utilitarianism, while others see it as a testament to the redemptive power of solitude. Regardless, the lawyer's moral awakening and the banker's guilt stand as universal lessons about human values. So, moving on to the discussion questions. So, I would want you all to learn or discuss: why does the lawyer leave early? Who truly wins the bet? How does isolation transform him? And what message does Chekhov convey? So, these questions are for you students to explore the multiple perspectives. Did the lawyer win through renunciation or lose by abandoning life's pleasures? Discuss whether Chekhov's ending is optimistic or tragic and what it reveals really about humanity's search for true meaning by knowing oneself. So, moving on to the conclusion, the final part, the bet remains timeless and the challenges idea of wealth and wisdom. It also portrays inner change as true victory. So, the emphasis given by Anton Chekhov in Bet transcends its time and culture. It also encourages the readers, that is, the students, to reflect on what truly matters in life. So, the Chekhov's message endures: inner enlightenment and self awareness are the true and ultimate victories over materialism and pride. And this is all about bet. And thank you.